What's up, guys? Fantasy Football Anonymous here, brought to you by No One and Nothing. And we're excited for week 3. We're going to be running down the games for you here pretty quick, and talking about some of our favorite fantasy plays of the week. One of the games we're talking about is being played right now, Rams 49ers.
But before we jump into that, I got to say, week 2 was ridiculous again. After a bad week 1, I was expecting a lot more offense in week 2, but it disappointed me, Joe. It disappointed me. Offense was still down. Things are still not what they are supposed to be, but I guess that's fantasy football.
I agree. And speaking of fantasy football, how about this game going on right now? You got the 49ers against the Rams. So much great quality football. Yeah.
Two quality.
Anyways, just kidding.
But honestly, the funny thing is, this could be a lot more exciting than last week's game of the Houston Bengals, which was just a complete and utter, terrible game. And maybe these two offenses will actually, hopefully get into a shootout.
Oh, sure, dude. That was a great game. Deshaun Watson running for a 50-yard touchdown. What more could you want?
I could want a lot more. A lot more.
A few more scores.
8:15 to go in the first, and we've already had more touchdowns than were scored last Thursday night. So,
yep. Already a better game.
Much trouble being better.
So, what's happening for your guys in week 2? What are you seeing that is making this fantasy season so different than last season?
For me, I've noticed a lot of quarterbacks that usually you wouldn't even have on your draft board from last season are performing very well. We have Trevor Siemian, and they also have Carson Wentz kind of taking that next step. So it's been interesting to see how the quarterback play is coming out a little bit. What about you guys?
Yeah, a lot of the guys we thought would be great have just stumbled out of the gates here. It's just a really weird year, really weird start to the year. And I think we're going to see things trend back more towards what we expected, but it's just taken some time for these teams to get the things sorted out.
Yeah. I will say one of the things that has been strange, I guess, is the guys you look for consistency. Your top-tier guys, there's not really any of them that have really stood out and been studs. Le'Veon Bell struggled. Zeke had a bad game last week. David Johnson has gone down. You look at the wide receivers, almost all the top-tier wide receivers have already put up a dud too. Whether it be Jordy Nelson going out of the game, Mike Evans having a bye in the first week, Antonio Brown putting up a bad game. And so the guys that you look for consistency, to put these big games, they're not doing it. And meanwhile, you have these guys, some of the C.J. Anderson types, the Kareem Hunts who are putting up the top numbers across the board. You're just what is happening? But yeah, you just gotta keep rolling with it. I think, as Joe said, I think a return to normalcy is going to happen at some point. But I think also some of these guys are here to stay, and we're going to be talking about those throughout the show. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first game that's even on right now, Rams 49ers. And Rob, let's go ahead and start with you. What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, a little more exciting. I think that the guy to watch, I think, is going to have the best game is Todd Gurley. I feel like he's the key star player on the Rams. I still like the Rams to win this game. But I don't know. This could be a high-scoring game already. We've seen 2 touchdowns. So I'm predicting that there's going to be more scores to follow. I think there's going to be some sloppy play, whether it be a pick 6 by, the excellent quarterbacks of Jared Goff and Brian Hoyer. I say that sarcastically, just making sure. And, yeah, I think we're going to towards this game. Joe?
Yeah, I like the Rams in this one, but not that much. I don't really think that much of either of these two teams, to be honest. I agree with Rob. I think Todd Gurley is the most fantasy-relevant player here, but I can see Carlos Hyde having a really good game here too. Game of the running backs.
Yeah, it is a game of the running backs. I think they're going to try and get Sammy Watkins a little bit more involved. Cooper Kupp has looked fantastic so far, and so all the Sammy Watkins owners are going to be probably kicking themselves a little bit, especially if they had drafted him thinking he was going to be on Buffalo. But this is going to be the game of the running back. Todd Gurley could have another nice game. And Joe, I know we talked about this during the week, but if you're a Todd Gurley owner, you still, like, while you like the points he's put up, you still have to be a little bit worried about his yards per carry and what he's actually getting. He's getting it done through the air, not so much on the ground. I think I'd have a few concerns, and if I'm a Todd Gurley owner after this game, I might try to sell high.
Yeah, and Schroeder, I'm shocked you said thinking he was on Buffalo as a positive. That's kind of funny coming out of you. That's good.
But I'm also really interested, and I think Carlos Hyde is going to have a very nice game. The Rams got ran over by Rob Kelly, and then Rob Kelly got hurt, and Perine came in and still had a decent game. And so I'm expecting Carlos Hyde to have a really nice game. And as the game goes on, he already has close to 30 yards in the first quarter. So that prediction, it might not be all me, but I think I liked him before the game, and hopefully I'll like him after. And I'm actually going to be picking the 49ers. That's who I picked before the game started. So I'll be sticking with the 49ers in this one. Moving on to the next game. Guys, welcome to London. Our first London game, 9:30 kickoff. The NFL does a great job at developing another quality performance of Ravens at Jaguars. Those London fans are so lucky getting to see all these premium games.
They love the Jaguars. They're always over there. Not like the Ravens in this game. Even though Jacksonville, they're quite familiar with playing over in London. I just like what the Ravens are doing now. I think their defense is in control. I think they'll be in control of this game. I don't really like any of the Jaguars' fantasy prospects in this one. I would be staying away from them. As far as Baltimore, it's kind of the same story as last week. I'm looking at Buck Allen. I'm looking at Terrence West. I think those guys are going to have the most production, but this is going to be an ugly game that I'm probably going to stay away from if I can in fantasy football. Joe?
Yeah, I think the one thing we can say is they probably didn't give the Londoners the worst game on the slate this week, which might be Browns Colts, but a close second, I think. I'm actually going with the Jaguars in this one, and it's more of a gut call here. And I agree with Rob. I think for fantasy, you're still playing Leonard Fournette because he's just too good. You can't not be playing him. I also think that Buck Allen gets some nice run here, but I just don't like what I've seen from the Raiders offense so far. Not the Ravens offense. I love what I've seen from the Raiders offense.
There is quite a big difference between the Raiders and the Ravens offenses.
I would like to give an apology to the Raiders.
You're going Ravens, Joe?
For comparing them.
We're for the record, y'all, we're gonna have like a blooper reel at the end of the season, so that's going on there.
A lot of my highlights. What do you think about this game, though, Schroeder?
Man, I still have yet to see a good Sunday morning game. It's like the Thursday night football. It's cursed. Like, it's always bad games. But this is not going to be an interesting one. If you want to watch a boring game, I think that's what this is going to be. I guess if you like good defense, if you can call it that, I would more consider it bad offense. But I'm picking the Ravens. You're going to be starting your guys. You're going to be starting Buck Allen. You're going to be starting Leonard Fournette. Besides that, I'm going to be trying to stay away from this game as much as possible. It's just not. It's not going to be a fantasy wonderland. It's going to be a fantasy desert, and no one likes those. All right, moving on to the next games. Our first 1 o'clocker. Another amazing game, as Joe mentioned. Browns at Indianapolis Colts. So, Joe, we'll go ahead and start with you this time. Who do you like?
No one. I'm actually picking the Colts in this one because they're at home. But honestly, I don't feel very strongly about either team going out and winning this game. I think you'll be okay to start both running backs in this one. It's going to be but another ugly game, I think, honestly. Another snooze fest, much like the Sunday morning game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Browns on this one. From the Browns, they're a young team. They're trying to find their identity. I think this is kind of their first step playing a team like the Colts, who right now have Jacoby Brissett, who is just, I mean, I'm an NC State fan, so I've watched a lot of Jacoby Brissett. Just not that impressed. But I agree with you, Joe. It's going to be kind of a trust the running backs. But yeah, I'm going with Cleveland on this one. I think it's going to be close, and not much to say. One guy I would stay away from is all the Colts receivers. Even though Doyle had a decent, nice week last week, I just don't trust T.Y. Hilton, any of these guys, until they get Andrew Luck back. Schroeder?
Well, Isaiah Crowell him before the season started. I think he's going to have a very big game. I'm starting him. I'm starting Frank Gore. As strange as it seems, I think if you're forced to throw T.Y. Hilton in, he's not going to be that bad a start. I could see him delivering some wide receiver 2 value. I wouldn't be depending on him for wide receiver 1 numbers, though. But I wouldn't mind putting him in my second flex spot. But I'm picking the Browns to win this one in surprisingly a decently high-scoring game. I'm thinking maybe like a 24-21 that can actually deliver a little bit of fantasy football goodness. Next game we got is Giants-Eagles. Rob, we'll start with you on this one.
Going with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are making good strides this year. I really like what I've seen out of Carson Wentz. I don't think this is the game you want to play him. The Giants defense, this is a tougher defense than he's had to face. But I like the Eagles to take them in this game. Eli Manning just has not looked the same. Odell Beckham Jr., I don't think he's quite fully back. I think he will get to that point soon. However, I'm staying away. Obviously, you're starting Odell Beckham Jr., but I'm staying away from him in daily fantasy situations. And this is a tough Philadelphia defense that came up really big week 1. So it's going to be tough for the Giants still. Their offense just has no rhythm right now. So I'm trying to stay away from them. I think the Eagles win this game. I think it's a close game, but Eagles for the win.
Yeah, I like the Eagles in this one too. Obviously, this is for fantasy. This is going to be a situation where you stay away from both running games. I agree with a lot of what Rob said about Carson Wentz improving this year, but probably going to be a guy to stay away from too in this one.
Well, man, Eli has looked so bad. I think we're going to have to sweep Eagles here. Eagles at home. The Eagles defense has actually shocked me a little bit. They've looked pretty good against a pretty good Kansas City team. But the Giants, I think you're going to see a little bit more Odell Beckham Jr. usage this week, which for his owners, that's going to be a very big positive. But, man, that offense, they have some pass catchers, but they have no running game what to speak of. And Eli Manning is just not very good anymore, guys. So I'm going to have to go with Eagles. Start your guys, the Alshons. But other than that, I'm not expecting that much fantasy goodness from this one. Dolphins Jets is next up, and Joe. Oh wait, before we move on,
I was just gonna jump in. Just one comment. Ever since Jim Schwartz showed up, he's really done a nice job with that defense. Had a good defense in Buffalo. I think the Eagles' defense is on the up as far as fantasy relevance goes.
Yeah, very good one to stream this week. Probably going to be able to get some nice sacks against that Giants O-line.
Yeah. All right, next game we got up is the Dolphins at Jets, and Rob, we'll start with you.
Dolphins Jets. Who am I going to pick on that? I mean, I'm going with the Dolphins on this one. The Jets, surprisingly, scored some points last week, but I like the Dolphins here. I thought they looked very solid in their opener. However, one guy that I'm really interested to see is, can Jermaine Kearse have another good week? I think he can. I think he's going to have another productive week. I don't love him as a talent, but he's the guy. He's the only, and they're going to be playing from down a lot this season. I think he's going to continue just out of usage and volume. He's going to have a lot of fantasy relevance. So I like him to have another good game. Jay Ajayi, I think he's going to run all over the Jets. They weren't able to stop the run the last 2 weeks, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Dolphins for the win.
Yeah, we're gonna have to agree on that one. I like your call about Jermaine Kearse being the king of garbage time. I think we could see some more of that this week. I'm still not sure that Austin Seferian-Jenkins plays in this game. We've heard he's a little bit out of shape coming off his 2-game suspension, but he's another guy to keep your eye on in the future. And I like the Dolphins to roll in this one.
Yeah, Dolphins are going to win this game, and that's just because the Jets are just so bad. I mean, they have a legit shot of going 0-16. They just do not have much talent on that team. You're starting almost all your Dolphins. Jay Cutler's a guy I really like as a streaming option if you're having some quarterback trouble. Devontae Parker had a pretty solid game last week. I'm expecting them to have a nice game this week. On the Jets, there was just news coming out today that the Jets are planning to use a three-headed monster is what they called it. I'm not sure I would call it a three-headed monster because there's no monsters in any of those three backs. So there's not really anyone on the Jets I'm going to be looking to start almost this entire season. Hopefully you can see something from Jermaine Kearse where he could be like a flex option. But start all your Dolphins, bench all your Jets, and that's as much analysis that needs to go into it. Broncos-Bills is the next game. And, Rob, since we're talking about your team, we'll start with you first on this one.
I'm going with the Broncos on this one. This will be a theme, me picking against the Bills. I was right last week, and I was right week 1 too. No, I've really liked what I've seen from the Broncos. I think this will be a little closer than people are thinking. I was really impressed with Buffalo's defense last week. I know Cam Newton's a little rusty, but they really held in there. And, of course, he did miss a few throws, but that's definitely the bright side of the Buffalo Bills right now. And I think that they're going to do a good job against what's looked like a really good Denver offense, surprisingly. But I think Denver, their defense is excellent. Carolina shut down Buffalo, and I see this continuing against Denver. It's a tough matchup. I would be very cautious about starting any Bills players. As far as the Broncos go, I'd be curious to see if Emmanuel Sanders continues, and I think he will have a good week against Buffalo. I think they're going to be exploiting that secondary. So, Joe?
Yeah, I like the Broncos in this one too. Excuse me. Yeah, we saw what they did against Zeke Elliott a week ago, and I think it's going to be tough for the Bills to get anything going if they can't ride LaShawn McCoy to any kind of a victory there. I'll be interested to see how the Broncos offense fares away from home. It's been very impressive so far this year. Simeon has impressed me a lot. I was really down on the guy before the season. But I think the Broncos continue to roll here. A lot of C.J. Anderson.
Schroeder?
Yeah, I'm picking the Broncos too. But I will say I'm expecting a pretty nice bounce back for Shady. What the Broncos did against the run game against Zeke last week, I'm going to call that more of a one-time wonder than consistency. I want to see it a little bit more before I can say, yeah, the Broncos defense can defend the run as well as they defend the pass as well now. So I'm still starting Shady McCoy with confidence. On the Broncos side, their offense has looked pretty darn good. C.J. Anderson has kind of revitalized their running game. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Jamal Charles has actually looked really good as a backup. So if you need a solid handcuff, I would definitely pick him up if he's on the waiver wire. And they have two pretty good receivers out there as well. I'm going Broncos in this game, and I'm starting almost all the Broncos that I can. Even though I will say this is going to be a little bit of a tricky matchup. The Bills' defense has looked pretty solid for the first 2 weeks. They were giving the Panthers a lot of problems last week in a very ugly game. So I wouldn't expect as much production as we got against the Cowboys in this one.
They also gave the Jets tons of fits, so Bills' defense is great.
Yeah. Any defense that can give that potent Jets offense fits, you know they're good. All right, now we're talking about the Panthers game, Saints at Panthers, and Joe, since this is our team, we're going to go ahead and start with you on this one.
I'm picking the Panthers to win, but I'm very nervous about this game after what we saw last week from that offense. They just couldn't really get anything going. But if there's a team to bounce back, for your offense to bounce back against, it's the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah,
I'm looking for Cam to have his first at least decent game of the season in this one. They might struggle a little bit early, missing Greg Olsen. That's a huge blow to that team. But honestly, I think this will be a good game to start all your offensive players.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Jets, they did score more points than the Panthers did against Buffalo. But that being said, I do think the Bills' defense is very good. And Cam is getting his stride a little more. It's going to take a little time to get all the timings down, especially with McCaffrey coming in new. I like the Panthers in this one too. New Orleans has disappointed so far this year, and I think the story remains their defense is awful. And this may get better as some of the rookies improve throughout the season. We've seen that with teams, but right now they're not stopping anybody. And I think Carolina is going to be really good. Now I'm interested to see how Jonathan Stewart does this week. I think they're going to run the ball all over him, open up the passing game. I think Cam will have a really good game too. This is one of those games, a lot of offensive guys will do really good on both sides, but I'd be a little hesitant on some of the New Orleans players. Carolina's defense has looked superb. They haven't let anyone score. They've scored points, but exaggeration. But they've been fantastic defensively, and I think they're going to give Drew Brees fits all day.
Okay, before I get into my pick, I have a question for you guys. Do you think the Saints defense every year gets together and be like, we put up a really bad defense last year? Do you think we can do worse this one? Because it seems like every year they just get worse and worse. They are bad.
And I can't figure it out, too. They add pieces oftentimes that are like, hey, that's promising. Never works out, though.
It really hasn't. Unfortunately for Panthers, the Saints usually play us hard. Fortunately for the Panthers, the Saints defense is awful. So I am going to be picking the Panthers in this one. One of the things that I really am interested in seeing is Greg Olsen went down last week for the Panthers. Obviously a big blow for fantasy owners. But I think they're going to start to get Christian McCaffrey a lot more involved with Greg Olsen's absence. So I'm expecting a very nice game from McCaffrey. Catching a lot of balls out of the backfield and even getting some more run than he did last game. And this might finally be his breakout game because he did really get bottled up against the Bills. But against a bad Saints defense, I can actually see him, having a very solid game and finally starting to get on the map. Steelers at the Bears. Rob, who do you like in this one?
This one's easy. I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bears played Atlanta really well in week 1, but just looked week 2. The Steelers, I like them. I like that their defense is playing well. Not great, but, kind of solid. I don't think they'll have too much trouble with Mike Glennon and company. So I wouldn't really buy into any of the Bears passing this week. I like Le'Veon Bell to finally hit his stride this week. I think he's going to have a big week against Chicago. And I think they're going to center a lot of the offense around him. I think now that he's got some practice, since the holdout, this is his breakout week. I'm going with the Steelers.
Yeah, we both like the Steelers in this one. I agree. I think this is the week Le'Veon Bell finally looks more like himself than he has in the first 2 weeks. Honestly, I love all the Steelers' weapons in this one. I think Antonio Brown's going to have a nice week. Martavis Bryant's another pretty good option. It's the pretty weak Bears secondary. I'll be interested to see how the backfield shakes out in Chicago if Jordan Howard plays, if he's able to get anything going, or if he's the biggest bust so far of the season.
Yeah, man, it really hasn't been good for Jordan Howard owners with Tariq Cohen coming in, stealing some carries, and then he gets hurt. This is not a good matchup for any of your Bears. I expect Steelers to really run away with this game. Start all your Steelers. If you have Bears, I'm sorry, first of all. Second of all, you probably are going to want to sit him. I guess you pretty much have to play Jordan Howard if he's in the lineup. But this one could get out of hand pretty quick. Definitely picking Steelers there. One of the surprising games, at least it was surprising to me at the beginning of the year. I didn't think this was going to be that great of a game. But now it's shaping up to be. It could be an interesting contest. We got the Falcons at the Lions. And we'll start with you, Joe.
Yeah, I like the Falcons to win this game. But it's another one that's got shootout written all over it. I think it's going to be a good day to start both quarterbacks. But yeah, that Atlanta defense has been a little bit more impressive than I originally thought. So I'm taking them in this game on the road.
I'm going to go with the Lions. I agree. This game's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to come down to the last drive. I really do. I think you're starting Matt Ryan. You're starting Matt Stafford. You're starting Julio Jones. You get the idea. You're starting everybody in this game. But I like Stafford to have another huge game. He's been a little surprising. I was down on the Lions this year, and I don't know. They keep continuing to amaze me. Atlanta also been a surprise. I thought they were going to have a bit of a Super Bowl hangover. They're playing extremely well. But whenever I feel really strong about both teams, a lot of times I'll go with the home team. I think, the Lions, Stafford's just had a lot of those good moments in crunch time over the last 2 years, had a lot of games won on the last drive. So I'm going with the Lions this week. Schroeder?
Wow, bold prediction there. I'm going with the Falcons. So this is a game you want to start all your fantasy guys. I will say I love Matthew Stafford this week and what could be potentially a shootout. If you watched last week, he would actually put up a really good first half. And it looked like he was on his way to a big fantasy game. But because the Giants' offense is just so bad right now, all they really had to do is run the ball. And I think he threw like 5 passes or something like that the entire second half. And so, while you look at his production, it looks like he didn't have a good fantasy day. For what he had to do, he actually put up some decent numbers. He gets a full game, especially in a shootout with a Vic Beasley-less Falcons. I like the Lions' shot at actually putting up a lot of points, but still, I'm picking the Falcons to win this one. Next game we got up is Buccaneers at Vikings, and we'll start with you, Rob.
I'm going with the Vikings on this one. Now, a lot of this depends on if Sam Bradford is able to play. If he is, I'm going with the Vikings. If he isn't, I'm going with the Bucs. I think that's pretty clear. The Vikings play really good at home, and I like what they saw. I think without Sam Bradford, they look lost. I think Bradford, while he's not the greatest quarterback, has really proven a lot about himself this season, that when you get him the protection and some pieces around him, they can make a lot of things happen. I see it happening if he plays. I think it'll be a good game. I like the Buccaneers. I like the way they look. So I'm going to go with the Vikings on this one. You're starting a lot of players. If you have Mike Evans, I would start him, but I'd be a little nervous in daily fantasy. I'd probably stay away from him. His cost is too high this week. Joe?
Yeah, well, you stole the words right out of my mouth. It all comes down to Sam Bradford, who I like in this game. I think he's trending toward playing, so I like the Vikings in this one. And with Sam Bradford, I think we see much better games from Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen than we saw a week ago. This would be a week I'd stay away from Jacquizz Rodgers if you drafted him maybe as a fill-in for the first few weeks. But I still like Mike Evans this week. Maybe temper your expectations, as Rob said. Avoid him in DFS if possible. But still some fantasy goodness to be had here.
Yeah, I'm picking the Vikings too, as long as Sam Bradford's healthy. I think the Vikings could actually be a really good team. You're going to be playing your studs. You're going to be playing the Mike Evans. You're going to be playing. I know I'm going to be playing Stephon Diggs. Obviously, Dalvin Cook, you're playing him. Other than that, Jameis is going up against a good defense. You might have better options there, but I do expect this to be a pretty solid, 2017 type game with the Vikings taking it, as long as Sam Bradford is the starter. Next game up, we got the Texans at Patriots, and Joe, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I definitely like the Pats at home in this one. As far as the Patriots go, they've got a lot of nagging injuries on that offense, but obviously, if Rob Gronkowski's out there, you're starting him. I think Brandon Cooks is their only wide receiver who's not been listed on the injury report so far this week. So I think he has a decent chance of getting going here. I think they try to get him involved more so than he has been. On the Texans side, you're probably starting DeAndre Hopkins just because of the volume, but I think this is a game where the Patriots are really going to try to take him away because he is their best, the Texans' best way of moving the ball at this point. But I definitely like the Pats in this one. I think they roll here.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add on that, Joe. I think the Patriots are going to win this game. I think that the Houston defense at times will make Tom Brady uncomfortable. Maybe he makes a mistake, throws a pick. But other than that, I think eventually they're going to wear him down. They're going to score lots. I like the Patriots players. Mike Gillislee has been really good so far this season. I like him in this game again. As far as Houston, I agree with you, DeAndre Hopkins. They always take away. Schroeder, you mentioned it last week that they were going to take away Michael Thomas. They did. They're going to try to take away Hopkins. Really, I don't feel good about any Houston players, even their defense. So I just wouldn't start anyone from Houston. Schroeder?
Yeah. This is going to sound strange, but I like Deshaun Watson a little bit in terms of a streaming option. I could see him just breaking out a big run. The Patriots defense has not been good. That is kind of one concern that their team has. I still like the Patriots in this game. You're going to be starting almost all your Patriots. On the Texans side, you still have to start Hopkins. I think it really depends on what the Patriots are going to be doing, if they're going to actually be doubling him and trying to take him away. I think you still have to start him. But I think we all remember what happened last year, Patriots at Texans, also week 3, where the Patriots just completely obliterated the Texans. I don't expect that to happen again, but I could see, another game that gets well out of hand for the Texans, and it's just going to be too much for them to come back from. In which case, I do like some of the Texans fantasy value players for garbage time. Garbage time still counts as fantasy points. Thank God. All right, next game we got is potentially the best game this weekend, at least in my opinion, and that's Seahawks at Titans. And Rob, let's start with you.
Going with the Tennessee Titans. The Seahawks offense has looked abysmal so far this season. The defense has looked very good, not taking anything away from that. But I just think this is going to be another ugly game. Tennessee does not have a very good defense, but neither do the 49ers. So I just something's missing right now in Seattle until I see otherwise. I do think they're going to snap out of it. I think their defense is playing very well. I think they're going to win a lot of games this year. But Tennessee is one of those teams that I think is on the up and up. And even though the offense hasn't been quite as explosive as we were predicting before the season, I think it's going to get there. I don't think this is the game it's going to pop, but I think they're going to do just enough to beat the Seahawks and Tennessee at home. As far as fantasy players, this is a tricky one because I think it is going to be a low-scoring game. I'd look to Doug Baldwin to have a good game, bounce back. He's been a little quiet the first few weeks. I think that Russell Wilson's going to be looking for him to try to get something going offensively. I think this may be a game he finally reaches the end zone and puts up some fantasy points.
Yeah, I agree. I like the Titans in this one. That Civ-like offensive line for Seattle is just it's a huge problem for them. If Russell Wilson wasn't a great player, they would be 0-2 right now. That one touchdown they scored against San Fran was all him. But I agree. I think that Tennessee wins this game on the back of a good solid running game. We'll see which running back is out there for the majority of the snaps. If DeMarco Murray even plays, they might try to limit him. So that may be a situation to avoid if at all possible. But yeah, I think that we see a little bit better Russell Wilson than we have the first 2 weeks. Hopefully he's able to get something going, as Rob said, with Doug Baldwin.
Well, guys, I think we're going to sweep Titans here. I really like the Seahawks offensive line has been atrocious. As Joe mentioned, if Russell Wilson wasn't a master of getting out of the pocket and escaping some bad plays, they would look really bad. Their defense got gashed by Carlos Hyde last week. I'm expecting a little bit more of the same, not from DeMarco Murray, but actually from Derrick Henry, who is going to be my sneaky play this week. I don't think DeMarco Murray is going to play. I think they're going to rest him in this one. And I think we're going to see a pretty heavy load of what can Derrick Henry do. The Seahawks offensive line is just going to be too bad to hold up to what the Titans are going to be able to put on the board. So I'm picking Titans. Next game up, we got Bengals at Packers.
Just to point out, Schroeder was saying Derrick Henry, not Doug Henry, who I once called him Doug Henry, who is it's a car sales place, so not the same guy.
Derrick Henry. Yes, I'm expecting a big game from Derrick Henry, not Doug. I don't know who Doug Henry is.
Schroeder, what game did you just say? I was thinking about Doug Henry too much.
We got the Bengals at Packers coming up.
Okay, yeah, Packers. I mean, in Lambeau against a Cincinnati team that has struggled tremendously. I mean, I don't really know what to say about it. I think it's just too obvious of a game. Start all your Packers. I like A.J. Green to bounce back. I think he could have a good game, especially from them probably playing from behind with the Packers' high-powered offense. Hopefully Jordy Nelson, will be good to go and won't have any rust. But yeah, I'm starting the receivers in this one. Packers.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I think it's a good day to start all your Packers. Jordy Nelson, it looks like he's trending towards playing. And when he does, the Packers are just so good. Rodgers is just so good. I think the Bengals do get a little bit of something going on offense this week. They've had a long time to prepare for this game. I think they definitely try to get A.J. Green involved. Also, I think we might see a little bit more of Joe Mixon this week. They really need to get him going and see what he can do. But I do love the Packers this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Packers win. But I think the Bengals offense is actually going to have a really good showing. This could evolve into a little bit of a shootout. The kind of secret that no one knows is the Packers defense is not good, guys. It's not. They were getting gashed for big play after big play against Atlanta. Now, Atlanta's a good offense, but the Packers defense, they faced Seattle, and we saw what the 49ers defense did to Seattle. So I don't have any faith in that effort. But I think we saw the real Packers defense on tape against Atlanta. And so I'm expecting big things from A.J. Green. Hopefully, if Joe Mixon gets the load, I'm expecting big things for him. And Andy Dalton is a nice streaming option if you need someone in a pinch that could also have a very nice game against the Green Bay Packers. Next up, we got the Chiefs at the Chargers. Joe, why don't you start us off on this one?
You know, I've picked the Chargers the first 2 weeks, and they've lost both games. I'm going with Kansas City in this one. They're another team that's really impressed me over the first couple of weeks. Kareem Hunt has been incredible, even though I didn't really like him to start the year. So he's done it all to spite me.
Only for spite, not for his team. You know, he just wants to spite Joe.
But yeah, I like him. I like Tyreek Hill this week. And yeah, there's not a ton to say here. Melvin Gordon popped up on the injury report today, and that's never a good thing to see. So we'll see how that works out. If he doesn't play, I really don't like the Chargers this week.
Yeah,
I think the Chiefs win this one.
Yeah, you know, Joe, I wanted to pick the Chargers on this too, but over the last 2 years, whenever it's crunch time, they do not get it done. Kansas City has been very good at these close games. I've been very impressed with them. I'm always waiting for them to backslide a little bit over the last few years, and they just don't do it. They're a good roster. They're well coached. Alex Smith, I mean, he is what he is, but he can be consistent. He can win you games. So I like them. And just like you said, Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill. Kareem Hunt's for real. He's a top running back in my mind. I think he's going to continue to have a great season, be a top 10 guy, if not 5. And I do see Tyreek Hill getting a little more this week. As far as the other side of the ball, you're starting Melvin Gordon. But I like what I've seen from Keenan Allen so far this year. Didn't reach the end zone last week, but had a lot of catches. If you're playing in PPRs, I think he's a really good pick from week to week. And crossing our fingers, he's healthy. And it's really nice to see him finally playing and playing well.
Yeah, what is quickly becoming my favorite game is how are the Chargers going to lose this week? First week, it was by a blocked field goal. Last week was by a missed field goal. This week, I'm predicting an interception on what could have been a game-winning drive for the Chiefs to win. I don't know how they do it, but they love losing close games. So I expect a pretty tight game here. You're going to be starting pretty much all your main guys in this game. Obviously, you're starting Kareem Hunt. You're going to be starting Tyreek Hill. You know, on the Chargers side, obviously, you're going to be starting if you got him. I like Rivers a lot in this game. I think the Chiefs can still give up quite a bit of yardage. So I like Rivers, and I will echo your sentiments, Rob. Keenan Allen has looked really good. As long as he stays healthy, you should always be having him in your lineup. Then we have our Sunday night game, Raiders at the Redskins. And let's go ahead and start with you, Rob. Who do you like in this one?
Man, I've gone back and forth on this game, but I'm going with the Raiders on this one. The Redskins have looked very questionable this season. Their defense just isn't getting it done. But I expect this to be a close game. I think the Redskins, while I don't think they're winning the division, I don't even think they're making the playoffs. I think they're going to win a decent amount of games. The defense isn't there, but I think their offense can get some things going, I think especially against the Oakland Raiders. However, Oakland, their offense seems to be clicking now. Michael Crabtree looked excellent, much to my dislike. I was facing him in several fantasy leagues. And I have Amari Cooper in several leagues. But Amari Cooper, I like what they got going with those two stars at receiver. Derek Carr's look good. And even Marshawn Lynch, while not necessarily getting over 20 carries, he's looked pretty solid so far. Beast mode is back after, I don't know. He must have ate some tropical Skittles or something. It's gave him a little more step in his game. So I like the Raiders in this. I'm starting tons of fantasy football. I think this is going to be high scoring. I'd start every star you got in this one.
Yeah, I've liked the Raiders in this one all week. They just have too much firepower, I think, for the Redskins to overcome. I'll be interested to see if Kirk Cousins can get anything going against the weakened secondary there in Oakland. If Jordan Reed plays, I like his chances of having a good game against a beatable linebacker and safety group there in Oakland. But yeah, start all your Oakland players. We'll see how the backfield shakes out in Washington. If Rob Kelly plays, he might be a decent option too. Who are you liking this game, Schroeder?
I'm going with the Raiders. I do like the Redskins offense to start to put the pieces together a little bit more. Kirk Cousins is notoriously known as a slow starter. I think he's going to pick up his game. But guys, what has happened to Terrell Pryor? He's killing me right now. In previous episodes, I told you how high I am on Terrell Pryor. The guy's a freak. You know, he's still athletic as anything, but he has just not looked that good the first two games. You know, his production hasn't been there. Is this going to be the week, guys? Is this going to be the week he breaks out?
He's a guy I like to improve as the season goes. As I was saying, with new players coming in, sometimes it takes a little slow start to get a receiver going. So I do like Terrell Pryor's value as the season progresses. Right now, I don't feel too good about him the first maybe 6 games until they get a little more chemistry down.
Yeah, it's going to take him some time to work out timing with Kirk Cousins, but I think he'll be a stronger asset, especially towards the end of the year.
On the other side of the ball, Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree play "No, This Is My Game," and you never know whose game it's going to be. You can usually tell by the first quarter who's going to be the star of the game, and last week it was definitely Crabtree. This week I don't really have a prediction because I have no idea who is going to be the star of this game. I wish someone did so I could actually listen to him, but I feel like the Oakland Raiders offensive coordinator just likes to try and annoy fantasy football owners as much as possible and not allow any consistency there. But I am picking the Raiders to win. And then we got our Monday night game, which have been very good to me throughout this entire year. We got the Cowboys at the Cardinals. Joe, who do you like?
I like the Cowboys to win this game. I think we see Zeke Elliott get back on track this week. Dak Prescott had his struggles against really tough Denver secondary. Des Bryant didn't play the best game of his week against those cornerbacks, but he didn't play the best game of the week. He didn't play the best game of his career against those cornerbacks there in Denver. But he did manage to find the end zone for the first time this year. I think just based on what we've seen of his target share, he's going to be fine in this one. On the other side of the ball, it'll be interesting to see if we can get anything out of the Cardinals running game. I think Chris Johnson was their leading rusher last week. Also interested to see if Larry Fitzgerald can finally have a decent game.
Yeah, I like the Cowboys in this game too. I think Zeke's going to have a big game. He's after that abysmal performance by the Cowboys last week. I think they're going to bounce back nicely. I think Zeke's going to be the center point of that. As far as the Cardinals, I'm staying away from their backfield. And I think Larry Fitzgerald is going to have a good week. I think he finally reaches the end zone this week. Dallas, you can score on them, that's for sure. Emmanuel Sanders did it twice last week, and but I think overall they're going to get ahead on them quickly. They're going to control the ball running the game. I like Dallas to bounce back in this game.
Yeah, I just don't think you can stop Ezekiel Elliott for 2 games in a row. I like for him to have a good game. I'm picking the Cowboys here. The Cardinals' offense is just inept. They were down almost all of the game. The Indianapolis Colts. This is a team that could be in for a long season. Hopefully Larry Fitzgerald can get something going. Their main guy, J.J. Nelson, is actually dealing with an injury this week. If he has to be sidelined, then that's going to make their offense even worse. Yeah, I just do not see good things for the Cardinals' future right now, picking the Cowboys. So before we let you go, we want to have to go over some of the guys that we really like this week, some of the guys we're not that high on, and some of the guys that, hey, maybe could break out, but might be stuck on your bench right now, and maybe you should be thinking about starting. So, Rob, let's go ahead and start with you, and who you think you really like this week.
Well, at quarterback, I love Kirk Cousins this week. I think this is finally going to be the game where they find their stride. You said he's a slow starter. I like him finding Jordan Reed a little bit. It's not a very good secondary in Oakland. This is one of those games where you can buy low on Kirk Cousins because he has been struggling a little bit in the early going. If you're doing daily fantasy, he's coming at a cheap price. So as far as running back goes, I like Jonathan Stewart this week a lot. Stewart is going to be, I think he's shown that he is the first down back. They're going to get McCaffrey in there a lot, but I just don't think New Orleans can stop anybody right now. I see them just running it down their throat. Here's kind of a surprise. I like Emmanuel Sanders again. I think last week he really proved, even though he's not a monster guy, he can get open almost just as good as anyone. And Trevor Siemian is not playing that bad. This Bills defense, while they looked really good, they've been great against the run so far. But Cam Newton was able to get guys open. It's a very weak secondary, a new secondary that they're still kind of getting the hang of playing with each other. So I really like Emmanuel Sanders as well. And then Jordan Reed. I just really think this is the week that Jordan Reed and Kirk Cousins are finally going to connect. Jordan Reed's too talented to not succeed eventually and stay, out of the end zone. And Oakland, that's the team he's going to do it against. Joe?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I love Jordan Reed this week. I've already mentioned the issues that Oakland has there covering tight ends. It's such a weakness for them that I think Washington will be able to exploit it. At quarterback, I love Matthew Stafford this week. We've already talked about the shootout potential of this game. He's been so good at home, so good at playing in domes. I think that continues again this week. And at running back, I like Jay Ajayi. It's just such a favorable matchup against the Jets. I think that the Dolphins dominate time of possession in this game, and he just runs over them. And my wide receiver play of the week, AJ Green. I don't see how it doesn't happen for him this week. Normally, when a guy complains, a superstar like that,
they feed him on the field.
They feed him next week.
Yeah,
and he's just such an immense talent. You can't hold him down for too long. I think this is the week they finally get him going.
Joe, we got a couple similar ones. I also picked Matthew Stafford, as you mentioned, shootout potential, and he's looked pretty good so far. I also love AJ Green this week. I think he could have a massive week. If you haven't bought on him already, bought low, I would try to trade for him right now. In terms of running backs I love, this is the week, guys. I already mentioned it. This is Kroll's week to dominate. If he can't get it done against Indianapolis, that pathetic Indy defense, he's not going to be able to get it done this year. So I'm going to be very interested in watching. I think he will put up a big game and finally start to get on track for the solid year he was supposed to have. And as a tight end I love is Zach Ertz. Ertz is just peppered with targets. And if it showed us anything last week, is that the guy's pretty lucky too. Did you guys see that play where it bounced off a defender's hand right up straight into the air, straight into Ertz, that ran it like an extra 30 yards? Like, I don't know how that happens, but I'm not going to bet against someone, where it's happening consistently.
Julian Edelman.
Yeah, the Julian Edelman of plays. So I love Ertz. All right, so who are some of the guys that you're not going to be starting or you're pretty down on this week? And Joe, we'll start with you on this one. I
actually went with Siemian as the quarterback I'm down on this week. I think that the Bills are going to be able to get some pressure on him, maybe force him into some mistakes away from home. And honestly, I think they just lean on the run game here against the Bills. For a running back, I don't like DeMarco Murray. It's a tough matchup in Seattle. And honestly, I don't even know if he's going to play at this point. I think they'll lean on Derrick Henry pretty heavily in that game. And receiver I'm down on is Larry Fitzgerald. We just haven't seen it this year. I think at this point, it's just going to be something that he's had so many good matchups, he's had all of two good matchups that he hasn't been able to exploit. We'll see if he can get it going. I hope that this is the week, but at this point, I think you're going to have to see it before you feel confident in deploying him in any matchup. And tight end, Delaney Walker, just a tough matchup against Seattle. I think Tennessee leans on the run game, as I've already said in this one. What about you, Rob?
Joe, it's funny. We're copying our tight end picks because I put Delaney Walker as well. Everything you said, I feel very strongly as you do. As far as quarterbacks, I don't like. I'm nervous about Drew Brees this week. I don't think this is going to be a great week for him. Carolina's defense looks really, really good. I think they're going to make him extremely uncomfortable. That O-line isn't doing him a lot. I think there could be a lot of interceptions. So I obviously you're probably going to start him, but if you have a great matchup, I would go elsewhere if you feel good about it. I'm going to go opposite of you, Joe. I don't like C.J. Anderson this week. Buffalo, throughout the first two games, and I realize it's the Jets not looking very well, but they've done good against the run. It's really been their secondary that at times has been exposed. And really, I guess they haven't been exposed much because they've only allowed, I think it's been like 19 points or something like that, 21 points in the first two games. So I think C.J. Anderson finally is going to get shut down. So I would stay away from him this week. T.Y. Hilton, he's going to be on my list, I feel like, every week until Andrew Luck gets back. I do think there is a chance. He's not necessarily a bad play, but until Luck is back, I just don't see the big plays from T.Y. Hilton. And that's where he gets all his fantasy relevance is those long balls. I'm not feeling him until Luck gets back. What about you, Schroeder?
I am so sorry, Marcus Mariota, to put you on this list again, but you just have another tough matchup against the Seahawks secondary. So this is a guy, if I have another quarterback or, even if I could pick up someone like a Jay Cutler streaming, I'm probably going to be starting him over Mariota. After this, Mariota has a pretty favorable schedule. And so there are brighter days ahead. Jordan Howard is a guy I don't like. It's a bad matchup, and he's hurt. Two pretty big negatives. So if you have better options, you're benching them. You probably don't based off of where you drafted them. But I just don't like his outlook. Definitely stay away from in daily fantasy leagues. DeAndre Hopkins, the Patriots usually do a great job of taking away their number one option. And for the Houston Texans, DeAndre Hopkins is pretty much their only option whenever they're throwing the ball. Their quarterback just stares him straight down. Sean Watson cannot look away from DeAndre Hopkins. That is the only person he ever looks at. So I think the Patriots are going to, unfortunately, do a pretty good job of containing him. He might still get a lot of targets, but I'm not expecting that great of production. And lastly, if anyone watched the Sunday Night Football game, it became pretty obvious that Martellus Bennett and Aaron Rodgers are not in sync at all. Martellus Bennett did not look good. He had one relatively big catch to kind of salvage his fantasy day. I think he had 4 points or something like that. But he's a guy I am going to continue to stay away from. A lot of people liked him before the season because he's Aaron Rodgers' tight end, but Aaron Rodgers does not really have a good history with actually throwing to his tight ends. So until they get some rhythm going, I'm going to be sticking away from Martellus Bennett this week.
I broke my promise. I said I was going to have Bennett as my tight end every week, so apparently I lied. But I agree with that, Schroeder. He just doesn't throw to tight ends very often since Jermichael Finley, and even that was a little iffy.
He threw to him last week, and Bennett just couldn't do anything with the targets.
Yeah, he threw to him a lot last week, and Bennett just kept on dropping passes. It was pretty bad if you were watching the game. All right. Lastly, moving on to some of our sneaky picks of the day. Joe, we're going to go ahead and start with yours first.
I went with Jay Cutler as my streaming quarterback of the week. What else can we say about how bad the Jets are? I'll be thinking on creative ways to describe their suckiness for the next shows. But yeah, he's clearly comfortable there in that offense. He has two receivers that he trusts, and I think we see another pretty good week out of him. A sneaky play running back this week, honestly, I think is Joe Mixon. I think you drafted him with a pretty high pick, and this might be the week to deploy him. I think they definitely try to get him going in this game. And he's obviously the best talent in that backfield, and I think he's going to eventually rise to the top of that depth chart and dominate the carries. Sneaky receiver play, I went really deep here. Went with Devin Funchess of the Carolina Panthers.
Whoa. Stole one of mine.
Whoa.
We're in sync again. There's a target void to fill there with Olsen. Some people like Funchess to fill it, but I don't know if that's a plan for the season long for the Panthers. But I do like him against a very weak New Orleans secondary. I think he has a decent chance of finding the end zone in this game. Very good DFS dart throw. It is a low price. And my tight end, Jack Doyle. It's mostly matchup based. Cleveland is just so bad at defending the tight end position. We've seen what Jesse James and his ilk have been able to do against the Cleveland Browns this year. So he showed some decent chemistry with Brissett in that their first game together. I think he'll be able to string together a decent performance this week.
Yeah, Joe, I put Jay Cutler as well. I'm sticking with that. You nailed it. I mean, Landry looks good. Parker was promising. I just think he's going to be a great streaming option. At running back, I have Amir Abdullah. He had a sneaky, nice game. Got a lot of carries the other week. And I think that with this game being a shootout, I think they're going to go back and forth scoring. I think the run game isn't going to be abandoned. He could be a guy that you might want to look at who, didn't have high expectations this year, was kind of one of those middle rounder guys, but might be getting back, into the swing of things after the injury. Well, you got me on the Devin Funchess. I was thinking that, but I had another one. Jaron Brown had a lot of catches last week. A sneaky good game, and you mentioned some of the injuries to Nelson. I think Jaron Brown, against that Dallas defense, and especially because I think they're going to be playing from behind, I look for him to have a nice week, definitely a low buy in daily fantasy. Jesse James, you mentioned him, had a great week one. Week two he still ended up with 4 catches. Never really had any big plays, but against a weak defense, I see him definitely being one of those under the radar guys. May even be available still on the waiver wire in free agency. I like him this week against Chicago. Schroeder?
Guys, we're going to be sweeping Jay Cutler. He's my bottom line pickup of the day. Not really any more need to be said. I could see him having a really big game. My sneaky play, I already mentioned Derrick Henry. I don't think DeMarco Murray is going to be starting this game. I think he could have limited work or he could be sitting out. So I really like Derrick Henry this week. They actually have a big timeshare against a surprisingly beatable Seahawks run defense. My wide receiver is a little bit more of a deep play. I'm picking Kenny Golladay. If you guys watched the game, Stafford was targeting him for a lot of deep balls, which I like to see. Hopefully he does that again this week. And, Golladay can be their kind of touchdown long play guy, especially in a shootout. I could see him having a pretty solid fantasy day. And lastly, for my tight end play of the week, I'm going to go with Ben Watson. I think Ben Watson last week took over the role of featured tight end in this high-powered Ravens offense. But seriously, Joe Flacco loves throwing to the tight end. I think he's the number one quarterback in terms of tight end targets over the past 2 years. And so any Ravens tight end that becomes the guy is going to have some value. I think that's Ben Watson right now. And so he's definitely someone I'd recommend if you're having some tight end problems, pick him up. And he could be a pretty decent play this week.
Yeah, and I'd like to add Ben Watson had a lot of success in New Orleans years ago. So I like that as a sleeper pick. That's very good.
All right. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Just so the audience knows, we plan on having a video at the end of the year where we of all the things we were wrong about in hindsight. So we'll have a few of those. Mostly we'll be right, so it'll be a short clip. But,
well, it's probably just going to be all Joe just talking, and me and Rob. I'm not going to see any clips of us, but maybe one or two thrown in there, but.
Yeah, one of you picking the Colts against the Rams week 1.
that was
we won't show that one.
that was Schroeder.
We'll lead off with that clip.
Yeah, we won't show that one. All right. Please go ahead and like us on our YouTube page. Please subscribe. You can send us email or tweet us at ffanonymous3@gmail.com or at ffanonymous3 on Twitter. For me, Rob and Joe, thanks for listening in. Hope to see you next week.
Thanks, guys.